Kaylee Meeks, persuasive speech. We have all heard the saying, spring forward, fall back, at least once in our lifetime, referring to the biannual practice of setting your clocks an hour ahead in the spring and an hour behind in the fall due to daylight savings time. Daylight savings time begins by setting the clock an hour ahead on the second Sunday in March and ends by setting the clock an hour behind on the first Sunday in November. It can be very confusing and a hassle to remember to do this, and having to lose an hour of sleep at first in the spring and summer months is annoying and can throw off the circadian rhythm, which is the body's natural sleep cycle. This is why daylight savings time should be made the permanent observation of time in the United States. TimeAndDate.com says that daylight savings time has been used in the United States and in many European countries since World War I. At that time, in an effort to conserve fuel needed to produce electric power, Germany and Austria took time by the forelock and began saving daylight at 11 p.m. on April 30th, 1916, by advancing the hands of the clock 1 hour until the following October. Other countries immediately began adopting this 1916 action. In the early 1960s, observance of daylight savings time was inconsistent in the United States and caused a great deal of confusion and controversy. By 1966, 100 million Americans were observing daylight savings time based on their local laws and customs. Congress then decided to step in and end the confusion, establishing one pattern of time across the country. This is when the Uniform Time Act of 1966 was signed into public law on April 12th by President Lyndon Johnson. It created daylight savings time to begin on the last Sunday of April and end on the last Sunday of October. Any state that wanted to be exempt from daylight savings time could do so by passing a state law. Then, by the Energy Policy Act of 2005, daylight savings time was extended in the United States beginning in 2007. From then on, daylight savings time begins on the second Sunday of March and ends on the first Sunday of November. Presently, Arizona, with the exception of the Navajo Nation, Hawaii, and all U.S. territories, observe permanent standard time. For years, politicians and lawmakers have pursued state bills and resolutions to observe daylight savings time as the new permanent standard time for all 50 states and territories if federal law were permitted. Eddie Rodriguez says 34 states are currently pursuing the idea of making daylight savings time permanent. By passing the law at the federal level, every state would be collectively on the same observation of time. In an article by Marin Kasana, she states that daylight savings time has numerous benefits to look forward to, like having more daylight in the evening hours of the day. Would you rather have an earlier sunrise or a later sunset? I'm sure most of you would rather have more hours of sunlight during the day to get things done. And researchers Dim Reed and Gretchen Dubose describe the healthy benefits of permanent daylight savings by saying, if you are someone who struggles with seasonal depression or just depression in general, more sunlight during the day is proven to help combat the effects of depression. The crime rate also drops during daylight savings time, and research shows that robbery rates fell on average 27% during those light-filled evening hours. Daylight savings minimizes energy consumption and lowers the cost because when you enjoy more natural sunlight, you use less artificial light, which is ultimately better for the environment. AHS.com reports that daylight savings time also lowers the rate of traffic accidents by providing more light to see while driving, which saves hundreds, if not thousands, of lives every year. The United States currently practices daylight savings for well over half of the year anyways, 8 months to be exact, so making it the permanent observation of time would not call for a huge adjustment in the lives of millions of Americans. The practice of the entire nation biannually setting their clocks an hour ahead in the spring and an hour behind in the fall is an outdated and unnecessary thing of the past. Making daylight savings time the permanent observation of time in the United States benefits the country and its citizens in the best way possible by providing extra hours of sunlight in the afternoon rather than the morning and eliminating the confusion of practicing two different observations of time in the same year.